Hey everybody, Boone Wyatt with the 323 Concept Furniture Restoration. Today we're going to be working on this dining chair, and we're actually going to be doing a video series, several different parts of showing how to repair different items on this chair. Today specifically, we have an area where our dog chewed up a little area of this parting rail on the side. You tilt it so you can sort of see that. But as you see, he, or she rather, her name is Charlie, little Morky, and decided to chew on our parting rail. And I know for a fact several different people have the same issue. So today I'm going to break down how I'm going to tackle to repair something like that. And it's fairly simple, I'll add that. And on top of that, it doesn't take a lot of supplies. So what you see in front of me, this is what I'm going to use. Right here is our main ingredient. This is the pine epoxy. And I actually have the color in black, so since we have a black parting rail, I'm going to use the black option. But I wanted you to sort of see what we're using here. This is a product made by Mohawk Finishing Products, and I'll put a link in our description of the video to show you where you can get that from. But these come in handy. These are two-part solutions. Let me take this out. Actually, I'll use the black here since we have it open already. Okay, so if you look, you can see a little bit of white in the middle, and what that is, that's the hardener of this epoxy, and the black on the outside is the colorant. So once we take a little bit off of there, you can use a little razor blade if you want to get a really nice clean line, but it's not necessary. But what I like to do is, you obviously have to mix the hardener and the colorant together. So we'll start by just rolling that together. And you can just do that just about any way you can think of, you know, just trying to mix that together to where it's only one color. Now, something to keep in mind when you're working with this epoxy, it is, once you mix those two items together, the hardener and the colorant, it's geared to harden up within about, you know, probably, I would say in between 5 to 10 minutes is when you're going to really start feeling it heat up and harden. So you want to start getting that on your repair area fairly soon. And if you want, you know, you can start with a small amount, that way you don't overmix and have a lot of waste. But once you have that blended into one color like we have here, you can start putting that on your repair area. And right now it's pretty soft, but once it starts to harden here in just a few minutes, you'll feel it start to heat up. And once it starts to harden, you can start to shape it a little bit more. Something that really helps is if you use a little bit of steel wool, and this is a 4/0 steel wool, which is basically just a really ultra fine steel wool, that way you don't scratch your surface. And this is something called wool lube. It's a lubricant that you can use to sort of extend the dry time on this, or the hardening time, I guess you'd say. And I like to put that on my steel wool, and this is going to help us smooth that out. So get that on there. And we just start going over that repair area a little bit at a time. And you don't have to get it perfect on your first round. The main thing is you really don't want a whole lot of excess epoxy on the surface at the end, because what that means is you're going to have to sand that off, right? So usually you want to just keep working that until it's completely hard. Get that out of the way. You could also get a chisel or a putty knife and try to scrape off the excess, maybe a razor blade if that helps you. But I usually like to just use what I've got at my disposal, you know, a little lubricant. You could even use water on your finger. You can use spit. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And you just keep working that area, and that's smoothing that down, right? And that actually already feels extremely smooth right now. And what that will do here in about 5 to 10 minutes, like I said, that'll harden up completely, and that'll be as hard as the wood itself. A lot of my customers ask me, isn't that going to come out or pop off? And the answer is no. If you have a really deep gouge, you can add a little nail into the repair area or a tiny screw, and that will help that grab to the repair area. But it's not necessary in most cases. But that's the first step of the process, and once that hardens up here in a few minutes, we'll go back in and we'll touch it up. What I like to use are stain pens. You know, a lot of the times you can get away with just using a stain pen. This chair is a little bit different. It's got a lot of different finishes on there. So, but most furniture at your home is going to be, you know, solid colors, either a black or a white, you know, or a dark cherry. But they have stain pens in all different sorts of shades at the hardware store. This brand right here is a Minwax. It's not my favorite brand. I actually like to use Mohawk branded stain pens. They can be found on their website as well, and I'll link a description to that as well if you're looking for some. But they usually sell in between, anywhere in between $5 to $10 each, and they are a great item to have around your home for touch-ups of any kind. You know, I recommend everybody almost have a black marker just laying around their house, because a lot of the times the edges on your furniture are going to have a dark burnished edge, and a black always comes in handy, you know, because those edges inevitably are going to get nicked up, especially if you've got kids or animals. So once that hardens up completely here in just a few minutes, I'll go back in there and we'll add a little bit of touch up to it, and hopefully it'll look good as new. I realized the camera was a little bit further away on that last repair, so I'm going to do a close-up of just a few more nicks that I see in here from the teeth. There's some right here, and then there's you know, some along this edge as well. I'm going to demonstrate up close how that looks. And like I said, this is what your epoxy looks like before you start to mix it. That white is the hardener, and then the black is the coloring. And those epoxy sticks, they have those in all different sorts of shades as well. Anywhere from completely natural pine all the way to black like this. So when I'm on the job, I usually use a natural pine, and then I'll just use my stain markers to get the coloring that I want. The pine will actually dry just a little bit harder than the ones with the other colorant. So, and just to give you an idea, I just worked with this ball right here just a few minutes ago, and it's already hard as a rock. So, you know, just a few minutes, 5 minutes tops, sometimes this epoxy will harden up. So, but like I said, I just put a little bit in those areas. I'll do the same thing over here. And keep in mind, I'm showing you this on a dining chair, but you can do this to any piece of furniture in your home. You know, you might practice on somewhere that's inconspicuous to begin with, just to get used to the feel of the epoxy and how it works. But once you get used to it, you know, you can do this on any piece of furniture in your home. And like I said, I'm just going to use a little bit of that lubricant. You don't have to use the lubricant or the steel wool, but I like how that works. So I'm actually going to smooth that out just a hair before I use my steel wool. There we go. And that's removing all that excess epoxy and then just leaving it in the holes. That feels good. There we go. Let's do this one. Same thing. It's removing all the excess off the surface that doesn't need to be there. And if you accidentally take some off, you know, just before it hardens up, put a little bit more in those holes and then go back over it. And like I said, you don't have to do it all in the first coat. If you want, you can let it dry up after about 5-10 minutes. And like I said, it's hard as a rock now, so you can go ahead and do your second coat on there and start, you know, add a little bit to the top surface. I'd rather do that than over apply the epoxy and then have to go back and sand it all down, because once you start sanding down that surface, you're going to start removing finish all around your repair area, which typically you don't want to do. It's just harder to repair it if you do that. It's not impossible to repair it, but we're trying to keep this as simple as possible. So right now you've got a really nice smooth area to work with. And like I said, this finish is a little bit different. It's old and worn out. We're probably going to end up repainting this chair completely. But you've got, it was originally all black, but a lot of that finish has started coming off, especially on your edges that are real worn. But we're getting ready to paint it, so this is going to give us a nice smooth edge to paint to. It'll be good. And hopefully the camera does that justice, but it's pretty smooth. When I roll my finger up, across the top of that repair area, you can hardly feel any of that epoxy. It's just smooth with the surface. So it's really, really good stuff to have around the house. If you don't want to go online and order the Mohawk brand, you can go to your hardware store, Lowe's or Home Depot. I recommend Home Depot. Find a product similar to this. It's called Quickwood, and it works great for these repair areas. It works the same exact way. It's a two-part hardener and epoxy, and it would work the same. I think they're a little more limited on their colors, but like I said, you can just put that natural on there and then just add your color after it hardens up. So, all right, so I happen to have some of this epoxy stick, the one I just mentioned, the Quickwood, laying around in the shop, so I wanted to show y'all what it looks like. This is exactly how you'd find it at the store. Like I said, you can get that at Home Depot, or I'll put a link in the description of our video if you wanted to order that online. You should be able to find it on Amazon, so we'll put a link to that product as well. And like I said, it works exactly the same as that Mohawk. I think it does take a little bit longer to set up, as if you notice right there on the packaging, it says this one takes about 15 to 25 minutes, and the cure time is 1 hour, so a little bit longer cure time, but if you're not in a hurry, this would be another option for you. But I like the Mohawk a little bit better, just because it dries a little bit faster, and time is money. So since we're going to be painting this chair anyway, I'm going to demonstrate what the repair looks like after it's got a little bit of paint on there. I just found a flat black laying around the shop, so I'm going to spray this rail and just sort of show you how it blends in now. That way you get a good idea. It's hard to tell because the edge is so worn from the paint chipping off. These chairs were outdoors. They were given to us by a client, so they need a new finish. But if you look at that, I mean, you can't even really see where that repair area is anymore. You know, put a couple coats of paint on that, and you know, unless you did the repair, you probably would never be able to tell that had been touched up. So, and if you're still not satisfied with your repair, you know, feel free to put a few more coats of the epoxy. If you see more divots, anything that needs another layer, go ahead and go back in there and start filling that in with the epoxy and do that same process. And you can take care of any imperfections. You know, looks like the edge will need another coat. Didn't quite take on that first one, but you could always put a primer on there first as well. But see how well that filled in that area? And this is the other one that we just filled in. It just fills right into those holes there. See that? You see just a tiny divot on the edge, but nothing major. All right, everybody, that wraps up our first video in this series of repairs on this chair. Some of the next videos, if you want to stay tuned, we'll be posting those in the next few weeks. But the chair is extremely loose, so we're going to show you how to break down a chair like this and re-glue it. It looks like it's had some previous repairs on it in the past. You know, some people tried to put some screws in there. But we're going to show you how to break that down, glue it back together. We'll also do a quick demo video on the seat of the chair. We'll actually do two different videos on the seat. First, I have a product I want to show you that works wonders on stained surfaces. If they've got minor imperfections, scratches, I'll show you a product that works wonders on those, getting rid of the scratches, or covering them up rather. It won't get rid of the scratches, but it'll cover them up, look as if it's not there. And then we'll do a couple more videos showing you how to refinish the chair completely. We'll probably paint the frame and then we'll stain the seat. We'll strip this down, we'll sand it, and then we'll restain it and seal it, and we'll show you how to do that right at your house. Thanks.